Well, you find me yet again in the Brian Tebbit Memorial Garden, but on a different bench this time. The others are wet because it's quite a cold morning. This one's been drying in the sun. I've just been up the road and opposite Paycox to the Robert Hitcham School building, which is now various businesses, one of which is a Vets. And the Vets brings in the subject of today's video. I want to talk about pets, and in particularly their history. When was it we started keeping domestic pets, domestic animals? We know all about the Egyptians who had cats, who loved cats, worshipped cats as far as I can see. The Romans, it goes back a long way, even pet rabbits back that far. And I know that VoiceOver Dave is itching to tell you a little bit about pets, so over to him. Pets. Those lovely, fluffy, scaly, or occasionally rather pungent creatures that share our homes, our sofa cushions, and sometimes our beds. Think Bob Hope, think horse. For many, they are the unwavering anchors in the turbulent seas of existence. For others, well, they're just very expensive dust magnets with opinions. But how did we, the peculiar inhabitants of this damp little island called England, get so utterly, irrevocably and sometimes hilariously besotted with animals? Our story, as most stories worth telling are, begins with something vaguely useful. In this case, it was the wolf. Now, before you imagine a fluffy poodle attending a Victorian tea party, these were proper wolves, big, toothy, with a distinct lack of interest in fetching slippers. Yet somehow, through a series of improbable events, involving shared campfires and a mutual disdain for the cold, Homo sapiens and Canis lupus began to, tolerate each other. The Romans, bless their organised hearts, were rather fond of their dogs. They brought them over, no doubt, to keep an eye on the locals, or perhaps just to sniff out where the good wine was. These weren't your dainty lapdogs. These were fearsome beasts, trained for war, for hunting, and, presumably, for looking intimidating at dinner parties. Imagine a Rottweiler in a toga. Terrifying. Then came the Middle Ages, a time of plague, pestilence, and the occasional dragon. Pets, darling, were less about cuddles and more about survival. Cats, for instance, were invaluable in keeping the rodent population at bay. And then there were the dogs, of course, not just for hunting, but for guarding. The Tudors, a notoriously flamboyant bunch, decided that pets should be, a bit more showy. Enter the smaller breeds, Bichon Frises. Those fluffy little clouds of questionable hygiene began to appear on the laps of royalty. And then the absolute pinnacle of pet absurdity, the pet monkey. Fast forward to the Victorian era, and the pet revolution truly kicked off. This was the age of the pet portrait, the ornate pet cemetery, and the invention of the dog show. Suddenly breeding for temperament and appearance became a thing. And cats. Oh, the cats, which deemed fickle and possibly demonic, they were now elevated to the status of elegant companions, serenely observing their human servants from atop velvet cushions. Their inherent coolness, their aloofness, their ability to sleep for 18 hours a day, it all spoke to the weary soul of the Victorian gentleman, no doubt. And so we arrive in the present day. We have dogs who think they're human, cats who are convinced they are gods, and fish who, well, the less said about the fish, the better. We spend fortunes on their food, their toys, their elaborate health care. They are the aliens who landed not in a spaceship but in our hearts, and frankly we wouldn't have it any other way. But there's one thing you haven't mentioned, voiceover Dave. When I was young, the thing you saw in most people's houses, in my parents had one, my grandparents had them, budgerigars. They were all the craze. The 1800s, a time when England started what we could call the Great Pesky Prisoner Exchange, transporting its big pesky prisoners overseas and also bringing back smaller, not so pesky but cute prisoners. The common Australian budgerigar. For aeons, Melopsittacus undulatus, or as it was known to precisely nobody at the time, the common budgie, lived a life of unremarkable greenness in the vast, unforgiving expanses of inland Australia. Its main concerns were water, seeds, and occasionally avoiding being eaten by something considerably larger and less green. A perfectly natural, if somewhat monotonous existence. No dreams of celebrity, no aspirations beyond a good head scratch from a particularly understanding eucalyptus leaf. Then, in the early 19th century, humans arrived, specifically Europeans. And Europeans, as is their wont, saw something small, brightly coloured, and thought, "Oh, decorative." One John Gould, a man whose primary goal in life was to catalogue every bird on earth, possibly just to prove it could be done, shipped the first live specimens to England in 1840. Imagine the journey, the sheer indignity of it, crammed onto a sailing vessel, exchanging the vast open warm sky for the equally vast but significantly wetter and distinctly colder North Sea. Upon arrival in England, the budgie quickly became the must-have accessory for any self-respecting Victorian parlour. Its chirpy demeanour and astonishing ability to sometimes approximate human speech made it an instant hit. Breeders, with a magnificent disregard for natural selection, began to cultivate a dazzling array of colours, blues, yellows, even the rather alarming albino. The budgie, once a tiny green punctuation mark in the Australian desert, was suddenly an interior design statement. It had, without really trying, conquered a new continent, not with armies or cunning economic strategies, but with sheer, unadulterated, adorable fluff. And so, from the boundless scrub of the outback to the often boundless wallpaper of a suburban semi, the English pet budgie endures, a small, unassuming creature whose history is a testament to human curiosity, occasional exploitation, and an unwavering desire for something small and chirpy to brighten a Tuesday afternoon, which, when you think about it, is a perfectly reasonable aspiration for any sentient species. So, the budgie. Amazing. And there was me thinking about budgie smugglers. We love our pets. We have a need for nature in our lives. And it doesn't matter whether it's a rat, a lizard, a snake, whatever it is, there's that inner drive within you to reach out and to make a connection with the natural world. And there's something about the communication that you have with your animals, and most people will tell you that their pets know what they're saying, and I believe that's true as a pet owner myself. So if you enjoyed the video, thank you for staying this far, and thank you for watching. But if you did enjoy it, please, if you haven't already, subscribe, give it a thumbs up. So, see you in another video. Stay safe.